Silence ruled the chamber long before the warning was spoken. The Galactic Council Hall drifted above a dying blue star, its light bleeding through crystal walls and casting long shadows across hundreds of seated delegates. Species from across the spiral arms watched holographic projections float in the center of the chamber, maps, fleet movements, threat estimates. One system glowed faintly at the edge of the display. Sol, Earth. It was small, quiet, insignificant compared to the Empire's present. A tall avian delegate clicked its beak in amusement. Why is this even on today's agenda? Another voice followed, slow and bored. Humans have no allies. No expansion. No recent wars. Their technology is outdated by at least 2 centuries. Murmurs of agreement rolled through the hall. Humanity had been classified as contained. Not conquered. Not protected. Simply ignored. The council chair gestured, and the projection zoomed in. Earth's defenses appeared thin. Scattered stations. Modest fleets. Nothing impressive. Then a sound broke the rhythm of mockery. A cane struck the floor. Once. Hard. Every voice died instantly. At the far end of the chamber stood a figure no one expected to speak. An ancient extraterrestrial envoy, his body wrapped in ceremonial armor scarred by age and damage. One eye was mechanical. One limb was artificial. His species had not fought a major war in generations. He stepped forward slowly. Do not attack humans. Laughter followed. Actual laughter. A reptilian warlord leaned back in his seat. You're serious? That species barely defends its own orbit. The envoy did not raise his voice. He did not argue. He simply repeated himself. Do not attack humans. The laughter thinned. The envoy turned his single organic eye toward the projection of Earth. His breathing was uneven. Not from weakness, but memory. My people once thought the same, he said. That they were fragile. Divided. Easy to frighten. A council member interrupted. With respect, this meeting is about efficiency. A limited strike. A resource claim. The humans will surrender. The envoy's grip tightened on his cane. They do not surrender, he said quietly. A pause followed. The council chair tilted its head. Explain. The envoy hesitated. That hesitation alone unsettled the room. When humans fight, he continued, they do not measure victory the way we do. They do not ask if the cost is too high. They ask only one question. The chamber leaned in. Will this ever happen again? The envoy's voice dropped. And if the answer is no, they will pay any price. The projections shifted as an invasion plan appeared. Arrows pointed inward toward Earth's system. A young strategist scoffed. We've analyzed their psychology. They value life. Civilians. Morality. That makes them predictable. The envoy looked at him. That makes them dangerous. He turned, revealing marks burned into his armor. Human weapon signatures long classified. They do not chase fleeing enemies, he said. They do not broadcast threats. They do not fight to win territory. He stepped closer to the center of the hall. They fight to remove futures. Unease spreads like static. One of the council's military advisors spoke carefully. Are you saying they will retaliate? The envoy shook his head slowly. I am saying, he replied, they will never let you flee. The chamber erupted again, this time not in laughter, but irritation. This is fear talking, a metallic voice snapped. Humans have not fought a galactic war in recorded history. The envoy nodded. Because they ended the last one so completely no one remembers it. Silence fell again. He raised his cane and pointed at the invasion arrows. If you enter their space with weapons, he said, you are not declaring war. You are volunteering. For what? Someone asked. The envoy's voice hardened. To be finished. The council chair straightened. Enough. This meeting is not a storytelling session. The envoy bowed his head once. Then this will be a history lesson instead. Security drones hovered closer. Final statement, the chair allowed. The envoy exhaled, long and slow. When humans retreat, he said, it is not fear. It is positioning. When they go silent, it is not confusing. It is a calculation. His mechanical eye glowed faintly. And when they stop asking you to leave, it means they have decided you never will. The vote began. One by one, lights flared. Authorize limited strike. Authorize resource seizure. Authorize containment escalation. The result was overwhelming. The chair spoke with finality. The motion passes. Fleets will move within the cycle. The envoy did not argue. He simply turned away. As he exited the chamber, He paused beside a junior observer who had been silent the entire time. "Record this," the envoy said quietly. The observer nodded, unsure why his hands were shaking. "Humans do not believe in mercy during war," the envoy continued. "They believe in closure." The doors sealed behind him. Far from the council hall, beyond the reach of politics and pride, alien fleets began to move. Thousands of warships aligned, confident, disciplined, certain of a quick victory. In the Sol system, early warning sensors detected the shift. On Earth, no alarms screamed. No panic broadcasts were sent. Deep beneath the planet's surface, lights turned on in places that had been dark for centuries. Ancient shipyards unlocked. Sealed orders opened. Names long removed from public records were spoken again. A human admiral stood in a silent command room, watching the incoming trajectories. He did not smile. He did not curse. He simply said one sentence. "Confirm they crossed the line." A voice replied calmly. "Confirmed." The admiral closed his eyes for a brief moment. "Then open them. Begin phase 1, he said. "Let them come." Far away, the ancient envoy stood alone at a viewport, watching the stars. "They were warned," he whispered. And as the first alien fleet crossed into human space, every possible path home quietly began to disappear. The alien armada crossed into human-controlled space with perfect formation. Thousands of ships slipped through folded space and emerged in disciplined waves, their hulls gleaming with confidence. Sensors swept the system. Weapons armed. Targeting arrays locked onto the nearest human installations. Nothing happened. No counterattack. No emergency broadcasts. No frantic maneuvers. The lead commanders exchanged amused signals. "This is it," one of them transmitted. "This is the species that inspired a council warning?" Human outposts hovered in orbit like old scars, functional but unimpressive. Defense platforms powered down instead of firing. Cargo traffic altered course calmly, as if following a routine drill. To the invaders, it looked like fear. The first shots were fired as a formality. A distant station was destroyed in a clean, controlled strike. No retaliation followed. Cheers echoed through alien command decks. "They're folding," a strategist announced. Exactly as predicted. But then the data began to feel wrong. Human ships did not scatter. They withdrew along precise vectors, maintaining equal distances from one another. No vessel jumped blindly. No distress calls were detected. Even civilian traffic moved with strange order, vanishing behind planetary shadows or slipping into hidden lanes. A senior commander frowned at the tactical display. "They're giving us space," he muttered. "Too much space." The fleet advanced deeper. Human mining colonies were abandoned without resistance. Orbital relays powered down one by one, not destroyed, just gone. Communications lag increased, but not from jamming. Routes that should have been clear began returning delayed signals. Engineers blamed local interference. Then the first supply ship vanished. No explosion, no debris. One moment it was there, next moment, empty space. "Probably a drive malfunction," someone suggested. Minutes later, a second supply ship disappeared. This time, the fleet halted. Scans swept the area. Nothing was found. No weapons fire. No energy spike. Just absence. The commanders ordered tighter formations and resumed the advance. Pride would not allow hesitation now. Closer to Earth, the aliens finally detected human warships, small groups drifting at extreme range. "Engage," came the order. The human ships retreated instantly, slipping away before weapons could lock. Laughter returned. "They run every time," an officer mocked. But a weapons technician stared at his console, confused. "They're not accelerating," he said. "They're guiding us." The realization spread slowly, like a chill. Human ships were not fleeing randomly. They were withdrawing along paths that funneled the armada forward, away from jump points, away from stable exit vectors, deeper into gravitational clutter. The fleet was being led. Before commanders could respond, space itself shifted. Navigation alarms screamed. Several jump-capable cruisers attempted emergency withdrawals and failed. Their drives charged, then shut down violently, burning out systems and killing crews instantly. "What's happening?" someone demanded. A reply came from fleet navigation, voice tight with fear. "Local jump lanes are collapsing, one by one." That was when the humans stopped retreating. From behind moons, from shadowed orbits, From positions that should have been empty, human warships emerged, not in a charge, not in a swarm, but in lines. They formed walls. Silent. Immovable. No communication was sent. No demands issued. The alien fleet found itself boxed in by invisible geometry, every direction blocked by human presence or unstable space. A commander finally opened a channel. "This is a mistake," he transmitted. "We are willing to negotiate withdrawal." The reply came after a long pause. A single human voice. Calm. Unemotional. "You advanced after we disengaged. That was your choice." The channel closed. Human ships fired. Not wildly, not furiously, but precisely. Targeted strikes erased engines, crippled command vessels, severed coordination. Ships were disabled faster than crews could respond. Panic erupted. Orders contradicted each other. Fleets attempted to regroup, only to find their paths blocked again. Every attempted breakout was anticipated, countered, and closed. Human tactics were not reactive. They were pre-written. As the armada faltered, a human transmission finally broadcast system-wide. "Attention, invading forces. This is not a battle. This is containment." Alien commanders recoiled at the word. Containment was not how wars were fought. Containment was how threats ended. Elsewhere, far from the front lines, humanity prepared something darker. On Earth, deep beneath oceans and mountains, dormant facilities powered up. Crews who had never expected to see these halls active walked silently to their stations. One officer whispered, "I thought this program was a myth." The response came flat. It was. Until now. Back in space, an alien flagship took a desperate gamble, charging weapons at maximum output, aiming to punch through a thinner section of the human perimeter. The human response was instant. A previously unseen vessel emerged directly ahead of the flagship, larger than anything else in the system. Its hull bore no markings. Its power signature was terrifyingly controlled. It did not fire immediately. Instead, it broadcast one sentence: "Advance no further." The flagship fired anyway. The human vessel responded with a single beam. The flagship vanished. Not exploded. Not broken. Gone. The silence afterward was absolute. Human ships tightened their formation. The containment ring closed. In the council chamber light years away, reports finally reached the Galactic Council. The laughter from earlier sessions was gone. Data streams painted a grim picture. An entire invasion force neutralized without a single human world under siege. One council member whispered, "They're not winning." Another corrected him, "They're finishing." The ancient envoy stood again, watching the feeds in silence. "They followed you," the council chair said softly. "Just as you said." The envoy did not look away. "No," he replied. "This is only the first door closing." Back in human space, the trapped alien fleets floated helplessly, weapons useless, engines crippled. A final human message spread through the system. "You will remain here until the war is complete." Someone asked, trembling, "When will that be?" The answer came without hesitation. "When no one remembers how to attack us again." And far beyond the battlefield, humanity prepared Phase 2. The containment field did not feel like a prison at first. The alien fleets drifted in silence, their ships still intact, their crews still alive. Power flowed at minimum levels. Life support remained stable. Weapons were disabled, but not destroyed. To many commanders, it felt temporary, an intimidation tactic meant to force surrender. They were wrong. Hours passed, then days. No negotiations came. No demands. No ultimatums. No chance to bargain. Human ships remained in position, perfectly still, like statues carved from dark metal. They did not patrol. They did not threaten. They simply waited. Inside the trapped armada, morale began to fracture. Engineers worked endlessly to restore jump drives. Every attempt failed the same way. Systems powered up, then collapsed as if space itself refused to cooperate. Navigation charts changed subtly with each scan. Safe routes became dead ends. Familiar physics no longer applied. One commander slammed his claw against the console. "This isn't possible. Space doesn't just lock itself." A quiet voice answered from behind him. "It does," the voice said, "if someone planned for it." The speaker was a captured human officer, recovered from a disabled scout ship during the early hours of the invasion. He stood calmly, hands restrained, eyes steady. "You planned this," the commander hissed. The human nodded once. "Centuries ago, That answer unsettled the room. The commander leaned closer. You knew we were coming? No, the human replied. But we knew someone would. The alien officer scoffed. You prepared this much for a hypothetical? The human finally showed emotion, not pride, not anger, but something colder. We prepared this because the last time we didn't, he said, we almost stopped existing. Across the containment zone, similar conversations unfolded. Captured humans spoke sparingly, but when they did, their words carried weight. They spoke of doctrines, not strategies, of lessons carved into culture, of wars that were never written into galactic history because no one survived to record them. Meanwhile, something else was happening. The human fleet began to change. Ships rotated positions with quiet precision. Larger vessels replaced smaller ones. New silhouettes emerged, older designs, heavier hulls, bristling with controlled power. These ships were not fast. They were not elegant. They were final. Alien sensors struggled to classify them. Databases returned fragmented results, warnings, corrupted data. Some ships did not appear on sensors at all until they were already present. One alien analyst whispered, "These aren't frontline warships." A human voice replied over an open channel, unexpectedly. No, it said, "These are closures." The channel closed before questions could be asked. Tension reached a breaking point when an alien destroyer suffered a life support failure. Panic spread as crews realized even basic systems were no longer entirely under their control. A distress signal was sent, not to humans, but to the wider galaxy. It was answered. The Galactic Council convened in an emergency session. Holographic feeds displayed the trapped armada, the silent human wall, the growing list of disabled systems. This has gone too far, one counselor declared. We must intervene. How? Another demanded. They're not attacking anyone else. A legal authority spoke carefully. Humanity has not violated interstellar law. The invasion was unprovoked. The containment is technically defensive. The ancient envoy stood at the edge of the chamber, watching. They are not punishing, he said. They are teaching. Back in human space, the lesson deepened. Human forces began surgical operations, boarding actions that targeted only command vessels. Teams moved through alien ships with terrifying discipline. They did not kill unless forced. They disabled controls, removed officers, and sealed sections. Every captured commander was taken to the same place, a human station that did not appear on any map. The room was always the same, bare, quiet, illuminated by soft white light. No restraints beyond gravity control. No threats. A human admiral addressed them one by one. You are here because you crossed a line, he said evenly. We need you alive. You will help us in this war. An alien snarled. By surrender? The admiral shook his head. By understanding, he replied. You need to understand why we cannot let you go. The aliens listened because there was no other choice. The admiral spoke of probability, of memory, of how civilizations forget pain when generations pass without consequence. If we allow you to retreat, he said, you will rebuild. Your children will remember this as a loss. Their children will call it a lesson. Their children will call it a myth. He paused. And then someone else will try again. One alien whispered, You plan to destroy us. The admiral looked tired. No, he said. We plan to remove the idea that attacking us is survivable. As days turned into weeks, the containment tightened further. Food supplies dwindled. Repair efforts failed. Hope eroded. The galaxy watched in growing horror. Trade routes shifted away from human space. Alliances dissolved. Military doctrines were rewritten in real time. Humanity said nothing. Then, without warning, the first fleet was released. A single alien task force was allowed to move, escorted by human ships to the edge of the containment zone. Their drives were restored. Their systems unlocked. Relief surged through the remaining trapped forces. But the relief did not last. As the released fleet prepared to jump, a human message arrived. You will return home, the voice said. You will report exactly what happened here. The alien commander nodded frantically. And you will tell them this, the voice continued. You were allowed to leave. The fleet jumped. Minutes later, a second message broadcast across the containment. Observe. Human ships repositioned. The space the released fleet had exited began to collapse inward, folding, tightening, erasing the path they had taken. An alien realized the truth too late. They let them go, he whispered, so everyone would know the door could close. The ancient envoy watched the feed from the council chamber, eyes heavy. They're not erasing enemies, he said. They're shaping memories. Back in the containment, panic turned into despair. One alien officer broke down, slumping against a bulkhead. We should have listened, he sobbed. Far away, on Earth, a human historian updated an ancient archive. A single new line was added beneath centuries-old text. Phase 1 successful. The Admiral stood before a new hologram, one that showed deeper layers of the plan activating. He did not look satisfied. He looked resigned. Begin Phase 2, he ordered quietly. And across the galaxy, the meaning of the warning finally became clear. Humans did not fight wars to win. They fought them to make sure no one ever needed to fight them again. The galaxy did not sleep anymore. News of the containment spread faster than panic ever had. Systems that once argued about trade tariffs now argued about survival. Ancient treaties were reread line by line. Military academies paused instruction to study a single question. How did the humans do this without declaring war? Inside the containment zone, the answer was becoming painfully clear. Human ships began a new movement pattern. Not tighter, not closer, deeper. Sections of space within the containment went dark, not from power loss, but from absence. Stars dimmed. Radiation maps returned null readings. It was as if pieces of the system were being quietly removed from reality. Alien scientists screamed at their consoles. This violates conservation laws. A human response came immediately, calm and precise. Only if you assume the universe is fair. The message ended there. The trapped fleets felt it next. Gravity shifted unpredictably. Time dilation spiked in localized areas. Some ships experienced minutes while others experienced hours. Crews aged unevenly. Instruments disagreed with each other violently. This was not chaos. It was controlled by distortion. One alien commander finally understood and whispered, "They're not killing us." His second-in-command stared at him. "Then what are they doing?" The commander swallowed. "They're making sure we can never explain this properly." Human boarding teams returned, but this time, they did not target command ships alone. They visited medical bays, engineering cores, data centers. They removed nothing essential. They removed context. Memory banks were altered, not erased, scrambled just enough that records would contradict eyewitness accounts. Logs would show impossible readings. Testimonies would conflict. Survivors would argue with each other forever. A human technician explained it quietly to a captured alien engineer. "When you go home," the technician said, "no one will fully believe you." The alien stared at him in horror. "That's monstrous." The human shrugged slightly. So is invasion. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council attempted its first real intervention. A coalition fleet assembled near the edge of human space. Officially neutral, officially peaceful, officially there to observe. The message they sent was carefully worded. "This situation threatens galactic stability." The human reply arrived in less than a second. "You threatened our extinction. Stability is no longer your concern." The coalition hesitated. They did not advance. Inside the containment, the next phase began. Human vessels deployed structures that looked less like ships and more like scars in space. Vast, angular constructs that anchored themselves between gravitational wells. When activated, they changed the rules of movement entirely. Escape was no longer a question of engines. It was a question of permission. Alien captains tried everything. They shut down systems to drift unnoticed. They attempted synchronized overloads. They tried sacrifice, sending one ship into a collapse to open a path for others. Nothing worked. Each failure made the humans more patient. A captured alien commander was brought before the human admiral again. The room had not changed. The light was still soft. The tone was still calm. "You are breaking us slowly," the commander said. "Why?" The admiral did not deny it. "Because fast endings are remembered," he replied. "Slow ones are learned." The alien clenched his fists. "You could end this now." "Yes," the admiral agreed. "But then you would be martyrs. Legends. Proof that attacking us was brave." He leaned forward slightly. "We cannot afford brave enemies." That sentence spread through the containment faster than any broadcast. Alien crews began turning on their own leaders. Mutinies erupted, not for power, but for explanation. People demanded to know why they had been sent here. Why were the warnings ignored? No answer satisfied them. Food shortages began, not from lack of supplies, but from systems refusing to respond. Human drones delivered rations just sufficient to survive. No more. No less. "This is torture," one alien screamed during a recorded transmission. The human response was immediate. "No," the voice said. "This is the consequence." The galaxy watched as something unprecedented happened. Entire species issued public apologies to humanity, broadcasts filled with fear, regret, and desperation. Promises were made. Reparations offered. Borders redrawn. Humanity acknowledged none of it. They were busy. On Earth, historians worked alongside admirals. Psychologists advised fleet movements. Sociologists analyzed alien behavior patterns in real time. This was not a war council. It was a closure committee. A human analyst pointed to a projection showing probability curves. "If we release them now," she said, "retaliation likelihood drops only 30%. "And if we wait?" the admiral asked. "Another cycle," she replied. 60%. 2 cycles, 89. The admiral nodded. "We wait." In the containment, despair hardened into something else. Acceptance. Alien crews stopped fighting systems they could not beat. They conserved energy. They rationed food. They began writing messages, final statements to families, to governments, to history. Many of those messages were intercepted. Humanity did not block them. They allowed them to go out unchanged. The galaxy began receiving fragmented, emotional accounts. Stories that did not match. Timelines that contradicted. Claims that sounded insane. Space bending. Ships vanishing. Humans speaking like executioners. Governments argued. Was it exaggeration? Trauma? Propaganda? Doubt spread. That doubt was the point. The ancient envoy stood before the council once more, watching the chaos unfold. "You see now," he said quietly. "They are not destroying fleets. They are destroying certainty." A council member whispered, "Can this be stopped?" The envoy did not answer immediately. Then he said, "Only by forgetting." Back in the containment, the admiral received confirmation. Phase 2 objectives were complete. He looked at the starfield, now fractured by human constructs. "Prepare Phase 3, he ordered. An aide hesitated. "There are still survivors." The admiral nodded. "There must be." He paused. "History requires witnesses." In the containment zone, the alien fleets felt the shift. Something changed, not in space, but in attention. Human ships moved again, not to close in, to separate. The trapped armada began to fragment, divided into isolated groups, each surrounded by silence. An alien captain whispered into the void, voice breaking. "They're not done." Far away, on Earth, a final line was added beneath the archive entry. Memory fracture initiated. The humans did not celebrate. They prepared, because what came next would not just end a war. It would end a question the galaxy would never dare ask again. The galaxy finally understood that silence from humanity was not hesitation. It was focused. Across thousands of systems, sensors picked up movements that made no tactical sense at first. Human fleets were not converging on the containment zone anymore. They were spreading out. Small task groups slipped into deep space, heading toward relay hubs, archive worlds, and ancient data vaults maintained by neutral powers. No shots were fired. No threats were made. Human ships arrived, transmitted clearance codes no one remembered issuing, and were allowed to pass because nothing in the law explicitly forbade it. That was when Phase 3 began. Inside the containment, the trapped alien fleets felt the consequences almost immediately. Long-range communications started failing, not completely, but selectively. Some messages reached home worlds. Others vanished. Replies came hours late or arrived altered, missing key phrases, corrupted in subtle ways. Families received fragmented updates. Governments received conflicting reports. Admirals argued with civilian leaders because their data did not match. Confusion spread faster than fear. One alien officer slammed his fist into a console. "They're censoring us." A human voice replied over an open channel, calm as ever. "No," it said. "We're archiving you." The message ended. Elsewhere, on a distant neutral world, human specialists stood inside a vast historical archive older than most civilizations. Ancient treaties floated as holograms. Records of wars long forgotten glowed faintly. A human historian spoke softly to the assembled team. "Find every reference to first contact conflicts," she said. Every record where escalation followed mercy. Her team worked in silence. They were not deleting history. They were annotating it. Back in the containment, alien crews began to notice something unsettling. Their own records were changing. Logs they swore they had reviewed earlier no longer matched their memories. Tactical recordings showed different maneuvers than crews remembered executing. Personal journals contradicted each other. One alien medic whispered, "I don't trust my own thoughts anymore." That was when the human broadcasts began. Not threats, not commands. Stories. Short transmissions, sent system-wide, translated perfectly into every known language. They spoke of Earth's past. Extinction events survived. Of wars where retreat led to genocide. Of enemies who begged to withdraw and returned generations later. "These are lies," an alien shouted. The human reply came gently. "No," the voice said. "These are the reasons." The stories kept coming. Each one framed the same lesson differently. To some species, it was logic. To others, morality. To others, cold survival math. Humanity was not just fighting fleets. They were arguing with the galaxy itself. Inside the Galactic Council, panic finally overcame pride. An emergency delegation was assembled, unarmed, escorted, desperate. They transmitted a request to Earth. "We wish to negotiate an end." The human response came after a long delay. "You are late," it said, "but you may observe." The delegation arrived near the containment zone and stopped. They saw everything. The silent human walls. The fractured space. The trapped fleets drift like relics. "What do you want?" one counselor finally asked. The human envoy answered honestly. "Understanding," she said. "And permanence." The counselor struggled. "You can't keep them forever." The envoy nodded. "We know." "Then release them." "We will," the envoy replied. "When the galaxy changes." The counselor stared at her. "That could take centuries." The envoy did not disagree. Inside the containment, the next step unfolded. Human ships began selecting individual vessels. Randomly, it seemed. Those ships were restored fully. Systems unlocked. Crews stabilized. Hope surged. But instead of being released, those ships were moved. Each was placed into a different isolation pocket, cut off not just from escape, but from each other. Alien crews could see neighboring ships, but could not communicate. Weeks passed. Isolation did what weapons could not. Some crews broke down. Some turned inward. Some rewrote their beliefs entirely. Human observers watched quietly. A psychologist spoke during a briefing. "They're no longer thinking as invaders." The admiral nodded. "Good. Some are starting to blame their own leaders," she continued. "Some are questioning their cultures." "Better," the admiral said. A junior officer hesitated. "Isn't this excessive?" The admiral looked at him. "Extinction is excessive," he replied. "This is prevention." Elsewhere, human task groups completed their work. Galactic databases updated automatically. New annotations appeared beside old invasion records. Outcome uncertain. Survivor accounts are unreliable. Human retaliation is absolute. No one noticed the changes at first. Then academies began citing them. Students asked questions. Teachers hesitated. The idea of attacking humanity began to feel unwise. Inside the containment, an alien captain finally demanded answers during a human boarding visit. "You've broken us," he said hoarsely. "What more do you want?" The human officer considered him carefully. "We want you to go home," she said, "and never agree to this again." The captain laughed bitterly. "You think we'll forget?" "No," the officer replied. "We think you'll remember too well." The first mass release began without announcement. Dozens of ships were escorted to the edge of human space. Drives were restored. Charts were returned. Before they left, one final human message was transmitted. "You will not be chased," the voice said. "You will not be hunted." The alien crews exhaled in relief. "But understand this," the voice continued. "If any of you ever return with weapons, this mercy will be removed from history." The fleets jumped. Across the galaxy, their arrival caused shockwaves. Survivors told their stories. They did not match. Some described mercy. Some described horror. Some described silence worse than death. No one could piece together a single narrative. That confusion spread like armor around human space. Back on Earth, the Admiral stood before a final report. "Phase 3 results?" he asked. The analyst answered. "Retaliation probability has collapsed." "How far?" She swallowed. "Civilizations are rewriting doctrine." Some are abandoning offensive fleets entirely. The admiral closed his eyes briefly. Good, he said. He turned toward the stars. Prepare Phase 4, he ordered. An aide stiffened. There's another phase? The admiral nodded slowly. Yes, he said. This one is for the ones who never attacked us. But we're watching. Far from human space. On a quiet world that had voted for the invasion but never sent ships, a new human signal arrived. It contained no threats. Only one sentence. We know. The galaxy held its breath. Because humanity was no longer just defending itself. It was teaching the universe what survival actually meant. The ones who had never fired a shot were the most afraid. Across the galaxy, governments that had voted for the invasion but sent no fleets watched human signals with frozen attention. They had believed distance was safe. That silence was neutrality. Humanity disagreed. Phase 4 did not begin with fleets. It began with mirrors. Every species that had supported the attack, financially, politically, or quietly, received something identical at the same moment. A sealed data packet. No encryption challenges. No firewalls triggered. The packets simply appeared inside the most secure archives those civilizations possessed. Inside each packet was a reconstruction. Not a threat. A simulation. It showed their own future, modeled outcomes based on historical behavior, resource pressure, and strategic culture. The projections were calm, clinical, terrifying. In every simulation where humanity was ignored, events proceeded normally. In every simulation where humanity was attacked, or cornered, or slowly pressured, civilization collapse followed. Not from human conquest. From internal failure. Trade partners vanished. Trust collapsed. Alliances dissolved. Panic drove bad decisions. Wars erupted between neighbors who suddenly doubted everything. The final line of every simulation was the same. Human involvement, minimal. The message beneath it was brief. This is what happens when we are forced to finish a lesson. Panic followed immediately. Emergency sessions erupted across dozens of worlds. Leaders screamed at advisors. Militaries demanded reassurance that their defenses still mattered. They did not. Human fleets appeared near key systems, not entering territory, not firing weapons. Just a present. Visible. Silent. Close enough to be undeniable. A nervous diplomat transmitted a plea. We never attacked you. The human reply was polite. You helped decide that someone should. The channel closed. Inside the containment zone, the remaining trapped fleets sensed the shift before they understood it. Human ships began moving again, not to tighten the prison, not to isolate further. They were leaving. Entire sections of the human perimeter powered down and withdrew. Hope flared violently. They're done, someone whispered. They're ending it. A few ships attempted to escape immediately. None succeeded. The space that appeared open simply folded shut again, like a door allowed to open just long enough to remind prisoners what freedom looked like. Humanity was not releasing them. It was demonstrating restraint. A captured alien commander was brought before the admiral one last time. You're done proving your point, the commander said bitterly. The galaxy is terrified. The admiral nodded. Good. Then why keep us? The admiral looked at him steadily. Because fear fades, he said. Memory fractures. History softens edges. He gestured to a display showing real-time data from across the galaxy. Doctrine changes, fleet decommissionings, emergency treaties. This will not, the admiral continued. You will be the weight that keeps it from drifting back. The commander stared at the screen. You're using us as proof. Yes, the admiral said. And as a warning. The commander laughed hollowly. You'll kill us eventually. The admiral shook his head. No, he replied. Some of you will go home. The commander's breath caught. Some. The admiral leaned back. We don't need everyone to remember, he said. We need enough. Phase 4 escalated quietly. Human task groups began visiting systems that had abstained during the council vote. Not supporters. Not attackers. Observers. Those systems received messages too. They were shorter. You did nothing, the message said. That matters. But understand this. Doing nothing will never protect you from what happens when others decide for you. Then came the offer. A choice. Join a new framework. One that forbade preemptive strikes, limited expansion wars, and enforced consequences for violations. Or remain outside it. No threats were attached. No enforcement explained. The implication was enough. Most systems joined within days. Those that did not watched human ships linger near their borders. not intruding, not aggressive. Just waiting. Inside the containment, the remaining alien fleets began to fracture psychologically. Crews argued over whether their species would be allowed to survive at all. Some believed humanity would eventually release everyone. Others believed extermination was inevitable. Humanity let those arguments continue. They intervened only when violence broke out, stopping it instantly, efficiently, without comment. Even mercy was controlled. The galaxy's media struggled to describe what was happening. This was not war, not occupation, not genocide. There was no word for it. A human philosopher spoke during an internal briefing. "We are not punishing actions," she said. "We are punishing ideas." An officer frowned. "Ideas don't die easily." "They do," she replied, "when they stop being rewarded." The first final release occurred without warning. Not a small fleet. An entire armada segment. Thousands of ships. Fully repaired. Fully supplied. Escorted to the edge of human space. Before they jumped, a single human transmission played across every ship. "You are free to go," the voice said. "You will not be followed." Relief swept through the armada. Then the voice continued. "You will tell the truth as you understand it. You will argue among yourselves. You will disagree. That is acceptable." A pause. "But if any of you ever suggest returning here with force, remember that you were allowed to leave once." The armada jumped. Inside the containment, those left behind watched the exit vectors vanish. One alien whispered, "We weren't chosen." A human observer recorded the moment. "Good," she said quietly. "They'll remember that too." Across the galaxy, the released fleets arrived home. Their stories shattered politics overnight. No one could agree on what humans were. Merciful? Ruthless? Unstoppable? Restrained? Every argument ended the same way. Don't find out. Military budgets were rewritten. Expansion plans canceled. Generational doctrines abandoned. Humanity watched and waited. Back in the containment, the Admiral received the final Phase 4 report. "Result?" he asked. The analyst answered carefully. "No major power is willing to test us. Even proxy conflicts near our space have ceased." The Admiral nodded. "And the ones still trapped?" The analyst hesitated. "They understand now." The Admiral stood and faced the starfield. "Then Phase 5 begins," he said. An aide stiffened. "What's left?" The Admiral's voice was quiet. "Closure," he said. "For us. On Earth, far from fleets and stars, a memorial was completed in silence. Names from ancient wars, wars the galaxy had never recorded, were etched into stone." A child asked a historian, "Why do we remember these?" The historian answered softly, "So we never have to teach this lesson again." In deep space, the remaining alien fleets drifted, no longer fighting, no longer hoping. Waiting. And somewhere in the galaxy, a young officer studied human history and made a decision that would ripple for centuries. He closed the file and whispered to himself, "We will never attack them." Humanity did not hear him. But that was the point. The galaxy began to breathe again. Not because the danger had passed, but because everyone finally understood where the danger lived. Human space was no longer marked by borders or warning beacons. It was marked by absence. Trade lanes bent around it. Explorers altered courses without being told. Even pirates, who feared nothing, erased soul-adjacent systems from their maps. Inside the containment, the remaining fleets noticed the change before any message arrived. Human ships were fewer. Not gone. Never gone. But reduced. Some withdrew to deep orbit. Others powered down weapons entirely. The space felt less tight, less suffocating. That frightened the prisoners more than the earlier pressure ever had. One alien captain whispered to his crew, "This is the part before the ending." They were right. Phase 5 did not begin with punishment. It began with memory. Human vessels deployed devices that did not interfere with engines or weapons. Instead, they projected fields that interacted with neural activity. Carefully, gently, precisely. Dreams changed first. Alien crew members began dreaming of moments that were not theirs. Ancient wars. Burning cities. Starving refugees drifting through space. Children hiding underground while orbital fire turned planets into glass. They woke up shaking. Medical scans showed nothing wrong. Humanity had not implanted images. They had a shared perspective. A captured alien scientist confronted a human technician during a routine systems check. "You're making us feel your past," she accused. "That's cruelty." The technician met her gaze calmly. No, he said. Cruelty would be letting you believe this was easy for us. Across the containment, crews compared dreams. Patterns emerged. Different species experienced different memories, tailored not by biology, but by cultural similarity. Warlike civilizations saw the aftermath of wars they never recorded. Expansionist species saw starving colonies abandoned when profit fell. Bureaucratic empires saw delays that cost millions of lives. Humanity was not accusing. They were mirroring. The Galactic Council received reports of mass psychological distress among the trapped fleets and demanded immediate explanation. The human reply was uncharacteristically long. You wanted to understand us, the message said. Understanding requires context. Context requires memory. We are providing both. The council chair responded cautiously. And if this causes permanent damage? The human response came after a pause. Then perhaps it will finally be permanent enough to matter. Inside the containment, something unprecedented happened. An alien commander requested to speak, not to negotiate, not to plead, but to apologize. The human admiral agreed. The commander appeared on the screen, his posture rigid, his voice unsteady. We were wrong, he said. Not just to attack, but to believe survival gave us permission. The admiral listened in silence. The commander continued. You could have destroyed us. You didn't. That frightens us more than annihilation ever could. The admiral nodded slowly. Good, he said. That means you're learning the correct lesson. The commander swallowed. Will we be released? The admiral did not answer immediately. Instead, he asked a question. If we release you, he said, what will you tell your children? The commander hesitated, then spoke quietly. I will tell them that we were allowed to live because we were not worth erasing, and that this mercy should never be tested. The admiral studied him. You may go, he said. The commander collapsed in relief. But the release did not come all at once. It came in stories. Humanity began releasing small groups, not by fleet, not by species, but by narrative. Each release was designed to carry a different truth back into the galaxy. One group experienced mercy, another experienced fear, another experienced confusion, another experienced shame. Together, they formed a mosaic no one could simplify. That was intentional, because simple enemies become myths. Complex ones become taboos. On Earth, the Closure Committee reconvened for the first time in months. Analysts presented data, charts, cultural shifts across the galaxy. The concept of total war against us is now considered irrational, one analyst reported. Not immoral, irrational. A sociologist added, children across multiple species are being taught avoidance rather than defiance. The room was quiet. Finally, an elderly woman, one of the last living veterans of humanity's forgotten wars, spoke. Then we're almost done, she said. The admiral looked at her. Almost. She nodded. The hardest part is last. What's that? He asked. Letting go, she replied. Phase 5's final action was internal. Humanity began dismantling pieces of its own readiness. Not weapons. Posture. Public broadcasts shifted tone. Emergency doctrines were sealed again. Some ancient shipyards were powered down, not decommissioned, but closed. The galaxy noticed. Fear did not vanish. It matured. Inside the containment, only a fraction of the original invasion force remained. They no longer asked for release. They asked for meaning. A human chaplain, an old role revived for this moment, visited one such ship. He sat with the alien crew in silence before speaking. You will go home, he said, or you will not. That decision is not about you. The crew leader asked, then what is it about? The chaplain looked out at the stars. It's about whether the galaxy still needs you to remember. Time passed. Years, for some species. Months, for others. Eventually, the final release occurred. No announcement. No message. No warning. The containment simply opened. The remaining fleets found their systems restored. Their charts returned. Their paths clear. No human ships escorted them. No voices spoke. They were alone. And they understood exactly what that meant. Across the galaxy, the last survivors arrived home. They did not hold parades. They did not write heroic memoirs. Many refused to speak at all. Those who did spoke softly, and always ended the same way. Do not attack them. The Galactic Council reconvened one final time on the subject of humanity. The ancient envoy was gone, passed quietly during the long months of waiting. In his place stood a young delegate from a minor species. He read aloud from the final resolution. Human space is hereby recognized not as territory, but as consequence. No one objected. On Earth, the Admiral stood before the memorial again. The names were still there. The silence was still heavy. An aide approached him. "It's over," she said. The Admiral nodded. "Yes," he replied. "And that's why it worked." He turned away from the stars. "Seal the archives," he ordered. "Let history forget the details." The aide hesitated. "Isn't that dangerous?" The Admiral paused. "Only if we forget the reason," he said. Far across the galaxy, a child listened to an old veteran tell a story. Not of battles, of waiting, of silence, of a species that never chased enemies because it never needed to. The child asked, "Why didn't anyone ever fight them again?" The veteran answered with a trembling smile. "Because the ones who tried came back changed." And in the deepest archives of Earth, beneath stone and time, a final entry rested untouched. Phase 5 complete. Lesson preserved. Do not make us finish again. The galaxy did not celebrate the end of the war. There were no victory broadcasts, no monuments raised in shared space, no anniversaries marked on interstellar calendars, because no one could agree what had ended. Some called it a conflict. Others called it containment. Most avoided naming it at all. But one thing was certain. The idea of attacking humanity was gone. Not defeated. Not argued against. Gone. Years passed. Trade slowly resumed along routes that carefully curved around human space. Diplomatic missions resumed, with strict language, softer tones, and carefully chosen delegates. Military academies rewrote entire branches of theory, replacing chapters titled Offensive Expansion with something new. Irreversible consequences. Humanity remained quiet. Too quiet for comfort. Inside human space, life returned to ordinary rhythms. Cities grew. Children were born. Old wars faded back into legend. Most citizens never knew how close extinction had come. Only that something heavy had passed, like a storm that never quite made landfall. That ignorance was deliberate. The archives remained sealed. Until one day, long after the last alien fleet had limped home, a signal arrived. It did not come from an empire, or a council, or a military power. It came from a minor species at the edge of the galaxy, young, ambitious, nervous. They had discovered a resource-rich system. That system lay near human space. The message was careful, polite, legal. We seek clarification on territorial boundaries. Humanity did not respond immediately. For 3 days, there was silence. Across the galaxy, markets slowed. Fleets paused. Old fears stirred. On the 4th day, the reply came. Not from a fleet. Not from an admiral. From an archive. A single, declassified record transmitted openly to the entire galaxy. It was not a threat. It was a story. It showed humanity's earliest interstellar era, fragmented, hopeful, reckless. It showed the first contact that went wrong. It showed a retreat that was mistaken for weakness. It showed a second strike, then a third. Then it stopped showing battles. Instead, it showed the aftermath. Dead worlds. Empty orbits. Refugees drifting with no destination. Human ships searching for systems that no longer answer. A final caption appeared. This is why we do not retreat from extinction again. The message ended. No further clarification was offered. The minor species withdrew its claim within the hour. That was when the galaxy finally accepted the truth. Humanity did not defend borders. It defended endings. Inside the Galactic Council, now reshaped, smaller, quieter, a historian presented a report summarizing the long-term effects of the human containment doctrine. In every modeled future, she said, humanity's presence reduces large-scale war probability. Not because they intervene, but because everyone else self-regulates. A counselor asked, "What happens if humanity disappears?" The historian did not answer immediately. Then she said, "Then the galaxy forgets again." That answer ended the discussion. On Earth, an old man walked slowly through the memorial grounds. He was not famous, not powerful, just old enough to remember when the lights in the deep shipyards turned on. A young officer walked beside him. "Do you think they'll ever test us again?" the officer asked. The old man stopped and looked at the stars. "Of course," he said. "That's what time does." The officer frowned. "Then was all of this worth it?" The old man smiled sadly. "Yes," he said, "because next time, they'll hesitate." He placed a hand on the stone, where names from forgotten wars were carved. And hesitation is where survival lives. Far away, in dozens of worlds, children learned simplified versions of recent history. They were not taught dates, not taught tactics, not taught human ship designs. They were taught one sentence: do not corner the humans. Over generations, that sentence became a proverb. Over centuries, it became instinct. Explorers learned to chart routes away from Sol without being told why. Commanders learned to veto aggressive proposals near human space without debate. Politicians learned that mentioning war with humans ended careers instantly. No one argued. No one laughed. The ancient envoy species, long-lived and cautious, erected a monument not in their capital, but at the edge of deep space. It bore no symbols, only words. Here lies the last mistake we did not finish making. Humanity never commented on it. They did not need to. In the deepest archive on Earth, the final seal was lifted one last time. The Admiral, older now, slower, stood before the closure committee's last entry. Any objections? He asked. No one spoke. He pressed his palm to the console. The archive shifted status. Closed. The systems that had bent space, fractured memory, and terrified the galaxy powered down fully. Not dismantled. Not destroyed. Just sleeping. Humanity returned to being underestimated. And that was the most dangerous thing of all, because those who underestimated them now did so carefully. On a distant world, a young alien officer studied old footage from the failed invasion. He paused on an image of human ships holding formation, silent, unmoving. His instructor watched him closely. "What do you see?" the instructor asked. The officer answered honestly. "I see restraint." The instructor nodded. "And?" The officer swallowed. "I see something that doesn't need to prove itself." The instructor closed the file. "Good," he said. "Then you're learning." The galaxy moved on. Wars happened elsewhere. Empires rose and fell. New species reached the stars. But one pattern never changed. Whenever discussions turned reckless, whenever arrogance crept too far, whenever someone suggested testing the quiet system called Sol, the room always fell silent. Someone would clear their throat and say softly, "Do not attack humans." No one ever asked why. Because the ones who knew never spoke loudly again. And the ones who didn't know never wanted to find out.